My name is Michael Carpenter, and this is Franklin Boulevard Media. I grew up in Gastonia. Grew up out in Chapel Grove, out on the foothill of Crowder's Mountain.
Okay.
We went to Chapel Grove Elementary, went to Southwest, went to Hunter Huss. Yeah, good old Chapel Grove boy. So growing up for me was a lot about freedom, really. Growing up out in the woods, not in like a condensed neighborhood. There were only a handful of us, right? So we had who we had to play with. And if you got pissed off at your homeboy, you weren't playing with nobody that day, So we had a lot of making our own fun, living, building tree houses, setting traps in the woods, gathering acorns and, slingshotting them at stuff. My childhood was fun. I didn't know I was poor. Like that's really the takeaway at this age is it was enough fun to distract us from the not having much. I was a good student, but I wasn't the most well-behaved. I got bored a lot in high school. A lot of times I'd finish work before the day was done, and I would just kind of left to my own devices, find ways to get in trouble. I ended up getting kicked out of school one year and then came back the next and caught back up with my original class. I did that with the Gastonia College. I graduated on time. So after graduating, I went straight into chef school. I went to chef. This was before Johnson and Wells. So Central Piedmont in Charlotte had a culinary program, and I did 2 years of that and immediately started working. I was already working in the food industry, but before I turned 21, I had a job managing a restaurant. The first one was at a pizza place, and then after that, I got a job with Hams, which was a chain that was around back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think there's one or two of those left, but at one time, there were like 20 of them. In my 20s, I realized there was more money to be made behind the bar, so I kind of got out of management into bartending. I also had a full-time day job. Couldn't seem to make enough money back then. So I was constantly working. At one point, when I was 27 years old, I had 3 jobs. I had 2 full-time jobs, and I had a part-time job where I would pick up shifts at a 5-star hotel, and I lived in Raleigh then, called the Olmsted, and I would bartend for special events. After 7 years, a lot happened, personal life, and then I ended up coming back home where I had more support, more family, more friends, that kind of thing. So when I got back here, I spent a year kind of bouncing around, worked at a couple of restaurants, but by the time I turned 29, 30 years old, I started my first business, and that was in 2009. My first business was a merchandising business. It's a real niche thing. It's basically you do work for manufacturers in retail and grocery stores. So, a lot of it was aesthetics. Building displays, putting in signage. I installed those little shelf alert things that keep you from getting to the medicine and high value products. I installed that stuff. And then that opportunity took me all over most of Eastern United States. I got to go all over this part of the country, building new stores, remodeling stores, doing little jobs here and there. It was fun, but after a while, that travel kind of wears you down. That opportunity started to dry up, or I saw it drying up, so I pivoted and I took the money that I had made and started spreading around doing different things. So I started making moves in 2015, and by 2016, I had kind of a new venture going. Vending machines. I bought a bunch of vending machines, and that business, I could have retired doing that. But it was so boring that it was kind of like a soul-crushing kind of thing. You hear people talk about the going in doing the same thing over and over again, how it just kind of defeats your spirit, and I could feel that happening. I did it for 3 years. I had a great contract with a big company. Half my machines were placed with them, and then I had the other half were placed in random places all over Charlotte and Gaston County. That's how I got involved in the business community. That's how I got involved with the Chamber of Commerce, with leadership organizations. That business opened a lot of doors for me. And because I had so much free time, I was able to, show up to different events, different ribbon cuttings, I ended up sitting on the board of a couple nonprofits. I'm still on the board for the museum in the Gaston County Museum in Dallas. I'm still on the board of trustees for that one. But like I said, after 3 years, it was kind of killing my soul. And I talked to my wife and I was like, I could do this, but I don't think I can do this. Like it's not healthy. So this idea for the Rooster, we had kind of started talking about it back around 2015. Actually, it all started as like a kind of a throwaway comment on the way home from a show. We were driving home. We went to a lot of concerts, and we'd find ourselves in these long drives home. 45 minutes, hour, 2 hours to get home from a show. So we were on one of those long drives home, and we started talking about how cool it would be if there was a place like this in Gastonia, in Gaston County. Like, we wouldn't have to drive so far to go see shows. Like, it could be in our hometown. No more driving to Charlotte, driving to Greenville, driving to Asheville. And then we started pontificating on all the cool things we could do with it. And then, woke up the next day, moved on with our life. I had just started the vending business at that point. So that idea kind of popped back up. I was like, well, this is something I thought about. Maybe now's the time. So in late 2019, I started looking at properties, and that's kind of how I got the ball rolling. So I'm old school. I wasn't about to call a real estate agent, right? Like I'm not big on the middleman guy. October of 2018, I started looking for property, and I started with the GIS. I went on Gaston County GIS, and if you don't know what that is, every county in America has, or they should have, a GIS system, which is where all of the property data is in one place. So you can look up the tax card on any property in the county on the Gaston County GIS, and they have a map part of their website where you can pull up a map and you can zoom in all the way in on properties at the street level, and you can click on the property and see who owns it, when they bought it, what they paid for it, what the tax value is. All that information, all the tax card info is on GIS. So I drew this rectangle from New Hope to Myrtle School Road, east and west, and from 85 to Garrison Boulevard, right? So that little box of Gastonia, I started looking at each of the properties in that rectangle that were commercial use and that were not residential, or that were uninhabited. I would spend my afternoon driving around neighborhoods looking at properties. And if I saw one that looked big enough, that had parking, that had access to the main thoroughways, I'd write the address down, and then I would go home and look it up on the GIS. And I did that for a few months. I ended up, and what I would do is when I found the property, I would send a letter to whoever owned the building. And I'd send a letter, a certified mail, and say, hi, my name is Michael Carpenter. I'm interested in your property, yada, yada, yada. I had like this thing typed out. And I probably sent out about 20 to 24 of those. And I was able to get into about 15 or 16 buildings. I looked at a lot of properties, and for whatever reason, I wasn't able to find the perfect spot. Half of them were right next to churches. And nothing wrong with churches, but you can't sell liquor if your property line is within 50 feet of a church's property, unless you're in a downtown district. A couple of them didn't have any parking. So after about 5 or 6 months of doing that, I wasn't really getting anywhere with it. So I ran into a friend of mine, Bob Clay, he works for Mecca. And we got to talking, and I told him what I was thinking, and he told me, he's like, give me a couple days. And a couple days later, I got a phone call, and this place had just been put on the market, like the day before. He knew that this place was going on the market. He didn't tell me, he wanted to make sure things were right. He sent me here, and when I came into the building, it was still 2 properties. It was 2 smaller properties with a big cinder block wall going down the middle. But even then, and this was March, April of 2019, Even then, I could see the potential this place had, and the rest is history, man. It's been awesome. I mean, we've done so much in just 1 year. We've hosted 3 festivals. One of those festivals was a fundraiser for Webb Street School. We raised $7,000 and put them over the hump to get some equipment, some interactive equipment they needed for their gym. That was back in June. We hosted like an East Coast type rock and roll festival called Rooster, where we had bands as far north as New York, Pennsylvania, bands from far south as Georgia and Florida came up. Touring bands that play at big festivals, national, headlining acts. That was awesome. We also hosted a huge Christmas party last year where we raised almost $4,000 worth of toys for the families at the Domestic Violence Center here in town. We also hosted a fundraiser for cancer services of Gaston County. That was a comedy show. Shout out to Denise Bryce Thomas for that. She was awesome. We've hosted private events. We've had almost 20 national touring bands have played our stage, in addition to the over 300 local bands that I've had a chance to play here. That's local bands, rappers, comedians. We've had, in 1 year, we've had 328 different people have performed on our stage or bands, and over 100 of them have performed more than once here in less than a year. So we're killing it on the entertainment end. I'm telling you, we've done everything. We've had R&B, we've had hip hop, we've had country, bluegrass, we've had heavy metal, punk rock, soul, anything. We stand-up comedy. We host vendor markets. We used to do them twice a month. Now we do them once a month. Magic show. We've had burlesque. Everything. Yeah. We rent out for private parties. We've had a handful. We'd love to host more. Private parties are great. It's great for both parties involved. There's less risk and less uncertainty with private parties. And, we can ensure that the people that want to rent our place get exactly what they want. And it ensures that my staff will all be taken care of. Private parties are great. When we host private parties here, it's great because this building has so much character. It's not stuffy and sanitized and dry. You know what I mean? This is a great vibe here, and you can come here and experience that vibe. There's energy in this room even when it's empty. That's a fact, and multiple people have pointed it out. So I think downtown Gastonia is still getting there. There's still a ways to go, but all of the right foundation has been laid. I'll tip my cap to some of the leadership we have in town. They've done a fantastic job of laying groundwork to invite business, small business, risk takers. The missing link that we have is that we don't have yet is just more people, more foot traffic. Downtown we just did a bar crawl a couple of months back, and you got a chance to go to 5 different places that all do 5 different things, and they were all within walking distance of each other. There's an arcade with a bar. There's a lounge, like an upscale lounge. There's a brewery. We do live music and entertainment. There's an Irish pub, and there's more than just those 5 too. We've got the ball field. There's nice upscale places to eat. There's different types of food. Downtown Gastonia has everything you want out of a downtown. The only thing we need are more people to come to downtown. My goal, my purpose with this is to provide entertainment, give people something to do, and that's why we do so many different things, because not everybody's into heavy metal or hard rock or hip hop. People want different stuff, so we keep doing different stuff. Now, as time goes on, we'll find out, what things work and what don't. And maybe we don't do so much of one type of music because no one comes. But we're going to keep doing what we do. We're going to keep providing opportunities for entertainment, opportunities for artists, and opportunities for small businesses, with our markets and stuff. We keep doing these things, and people will take notice and realize that, hey, there's a lot going on in downtown. Well, to anybody that's an entrepreneur or wants to be an entrepreneur, there's 2 things that separate me from what I see other people doing. Number 1 is intention. The reason we bought the property and not leased it, the reason we did all the construction and just ate all of that was intention. We're here to stay, and we're here to provide entertainment for everybody. Like this place was never about how much money we can make. This place is about how much can we do for this community. Number two is, you have to be a little bit relentless. You have to be a pit bull. You have to take no shit. Like you don't get to get ahead by taking what you're given. You have to go get it. And that's probably the reason I'm no good as an employee. I see it, set my sights on something. I put together the plan. That's the real important part. I didn't just go in this willy-nilly with no plan. It took a lot of planning, a lot of, you got to think about it like chess, not checkers. Like you got to think multiple moves ahead, and you also have to give yourself, ways to pivot in the future. Like everything's not going to work out the way you plan it. So how are you going to deal with that when it happens? And during COVID, I had plenty of time to imagine every possible scenario and figure out how I was going to deal with it when it happened. For everyone that's come to a show and you've been back multiple times, thank you. Like I can't thank you enough. It means the world to me that people have responded to what we're doing. We're not done, and I'm not satisfied. I want more. I want this place packed out every weekend. And I know we can do it. So if there's something that you think we can do better, feel free to let us know. We have a website with a contact form. We have an events tab. You can see all of our upcoming shows. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're at the Rooster Gastonia, and we're here to stay, baby. Come check us out. Peace and love.